OCD and chronic anxiety are excellent at mimicking and imitating different emotions and mirroring certain sensations. And I'll just tell you what I mean by that. But before I go on, please subscribe to the channel, let us know what you think. And yeah, if you have any suggestions for videos, let us know. And if you want to come in for one-to-one coaching calls, you can email phil@ocdrecovery.com, or you can also message us on WhatsApp by clicking the link in the description below. So when you're suffering with OCD, and there are certain fears you have, and most commonly people have a fear of being really sad and depressed for the rest of their life, or really guilty and shameful for the rest of their life. And they're trying to really avoid that emotion, and they're trying to make sure that they don't go into that emotional space and don't get stuck in it, right? But at the same time, one emotion or physical state that it really overlaps with those feelings of depression, guilt, and shame is the feeling of exhaustion and being tired. That is very well laced in with those feelings of guilt, shame, and depression as well. Because many people I would say that I work with, I would say, in fact, majority, and this is including myself as well, my major fear was being sad, depressed, miserable for the rest of my life, and guilty for the rest of my life. I didn't want to feel that. I thought I needed to avoid any situation that risked me feeling long term hurt, depression, sadness, or any of those negative feelings. But at the same time, one of the things that I realized much later was how much I was also running away from, absolutely desperately running away from feeling tired and exhausted all the time. Anything that I felt required extra effort, anything that I felt required any extra mental work, anything that I felt like was even slightly extra challenging and beyond my, what's that word? Um, there's a radius, and then there is, what's the fuller thing called? I feel like I started to forget things quite a lot recently. Maybe it's because of OCD. My brain is deteriorating. But anyway, essentially what I'm trying, diameter, I think. What I'm trying to say is that, like, anything that like was slightly remotely outside of my zone of convenience and my zone of comfort, I felt like I couldn't do it, and I just didn't want to do it. And the thing is, I always love saying this phrase that it becomes a self fulfilling prophecy, because in my mind it was built up to be something like, if I put that extra effort in, it's going to be super exhausting on me. It's going to make me feel overwhelmed. It's going to drain me of energy. And because it was so built up in my head, naturally, and that is exactly the feeling I did not want to happen. So naturally, when I went into a situation, or if I did put that extra effort in and did the thing I did not want to do, I exactly felt that way because I just did not want to feel that way. And OCD will make you feel things that you don't want to feel. So it would, like, just a small trip to the grocery store. How much effort does it take to go to the grocery store? How much time does it take? Like, you're not spending hours and hours over there, unless you're a compulsive shopper. But or unless you're a Target. I think Target is one of those stores you can spend like 2 hours in and just still want to be there. Or what's our other one? IKEA. Ooh, I love, like, I went to my first IKEA store earlier this year, and like, not sorry, last year, and things have never been the same. It was such a good store to be in, and I could be there for like 2 3 hours. Anyway, I digress. But so even like a small trip to the grocery store felt really exhausting and really tiring. And by the time I would come home, I would need like a 15 20 minute power nap to just like recover from it and recharge. So this was like a perpetual theme throughout my OCD suffering. And I think it was much down the line where Rob also made me realize, because I always kept thinking, what is it that I'm afraid of? I know I'm afraid of bad things happening, but if someone asked me what bad things I'm afraid of, I don't know. I don't have any specifics over here. Like, it's just this elusive kind of fear of something bad happening. And then I remember that phone call as well. Rob was like, you have a fear of uncomfortable sensations, period. So whether that's fear of feeling depressed, guilty, or whatever it is, you just want to run away from it. And that fear of uncomfortable sensation for me was also fear of being tired and exhausted as well. So then it wasn't attached to these big real event, contamination, relationship OCD stuff. It was also mundane stuff like I just don't want to get out of bed and go to the grocery store for 15-20 minutes and then come back. I don't want to do that. So OCD will very cleverly and very neatly mimic and mirror feelings of depression, guilt, or whatever negative emotions. It will mirror that with feelings of tiredness and exhaustion. This can also then go into compulsive sleeping. I remember, thankfully, it didn't last that long, but I remember a few months. There was a phase in between where for a few months I was just like sleeping throughout the day, and I remember my brother. I very clearly remember that specific moment where my brother walked in and I was in the state of being half asleep and just like waking from it, but waking from my sleep but also then going back into it. And he was like, you're you're constantly sleeping, like what's going on? And I was that way. I was just constantly asleep. So I could barely stay awake because I just felt like my nerves were constantly fried, and I barely had any energy to get myself throughout the day. So it really, I think, shed a light for me on, and it was a big breakthrough moment for me because it really shed a light for me how in like because my brain is not able to differentiate from like that much from feelings of exhaustion and feelings of depression. For me it felt exactly the same because even when I thought about being depressed long term and being really miserable long term, I mean, I could see myself being completely lethargic and like zapped of any energy. And I was like, no wonder I'm just trying to run away from anything that requires physical effort or mental effort as well, because I think that will lead me into depression as well. Um, so people get very compulsive about resting. I was also spending compulsive me time because I was like, I need to spend, after the day is done, especially, I need to spend like 3-4 hours just by myself, alone, in the quiet, so I can recharge and recuperate before the next day. If I did not get that, I would feel quite cranky and irritable the next day. And it would like for me, the fear was that if I don't get that me time, it would snowball into just me being just perpetually like disgruntled and grumpy and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't want to be that because I was like, I'm a happy personality. I'm generally a jokey, humorous personality. I like, being a little, I'm someone who's talkative. I like making jokes. I like being funny with people and all those things. And I thought I would lose that spark that makes me me. So like I have to recharge and go back to that spot where I feel that way. Um, so it that compulsive me time became a big thing for me. Avoiding any content that was heavy, depressing, sad, any TV show that required too much mental effort. Like I think I started watching Westworld with my brother at the time, and I mean when you're watching something with someone, it becomes easier because then you have someone else to do the thinking for you, and you can just like discuss it with them and someone can give you the answers. But like Westworld was just one of those shows where I was like, I mean, after the second season, I was just like, they're trying too hard and they're just like, what are they doing? But it was just like, I have to go because it became so overly complicated. Then I was like, I have to read online now what it says and what the analysis is because I clearly don't get this. So anything that required that extra amount of effort and thinking, I was just like, I don't want to do it, and I just wanted to run away from it. So I gravitated more towards, if it, especially when it came to just watching things by myself, I only gravitated towards doing reruns of either Friends, Will and Grace, Mom, which is one of my all-time favorite sitcoms as well. Like all these Parks and Recreation, 30 Rock, like all these light-hearted, funny shows. And so gravitating more towards that, spending time on like in bed quite a lot. Like my bed was my absolute haven and sanctuary. It was my absolute savior. That's what it felt like. And so I just wanted to stay in bed all the time. Uh, like I even when I was hanging out with my friends and they came over, I would be mostly sitting in my bed and hanging out with them because it just felt really super comfortable and just nice and cozy and everything. So there's so many things that go around it. Then I would really divide up commitments across my schedule because I felt like I could not do too many commitments in a single week. Even at times I was like I can't commit too many things in one single month because it's going to be an exhausting month and there's so much happening already, so I just want to balance things out. And I would then pre-plan. I'd be like, okay, because there's also like a wedding that's happening next month and I'll be super busy with that, so I want to make sure that this month is not as heavy on like on socializing and all those things. So I'll take a restful month before going into that 1 week, that one wedding week, because that's going to zap me out completely. Like I would pre-plan that much ahead and I would say no to invitations. I would feel very reluctant putting things in my calendar. Also because putting things in my calendar mentally felt like I was trapping myself in something. So saying yes to any kind of dinner invitation or something felt like it was almost just like emotional mental claustrophobia that I started to feel because I was like, no, I don't want to feel cornered or now and locked into something this much. I want to maintain my flexibility and go with the flow feeling. So I would wait till maybe like the last day or something to say that okay, now I can come, because then I didn't have to spend that entire time dreading like, oh my god, I'm so locked into this commitment. So that was like another thing for me as well. Like there were a lot of things around this, but I think like depression, guilt, very much went hand in hand with exhaustion, because I thought if I would be exhausted, I would feel depressed and guilty much easily. And I felt like if I was depressed and guilty, I would be perpetually exhausted as well. So, and this again, like I said, it laces in with like so many other themes. Like it doesn't matter what theme you're going through, most people are afraid of being really sad, heartbroken for the rest of their life, or really guilty and shameful and regretful for the rest of their life. And most of those people are also then running away from exhaustion. And by the way, just you might be someone, because not all OCD sufferers are just like lying in their beds and just like avoiding life and whatnot. There are a lot of OCD sufferers who are very much like on the go, and they are just like very active and they have full schedules and busy lives. So it's not always that, but even then, like the fear of exhaustion can still be there, because in their specific life capacity in what they're doing, because they might be doing all the things, going to a job, spending time with family and whatnot, but because they also don't find that very exhausting necessarily, I mean, they're just going in flow. But then there will often be things that they feel like are a complete heck and inconvenience and require too much mental and physical effort. So even in their own capacity, there will be some things that they will be avoiding because of that fear of being tired. So pushing themselves towards those specific things that you are running away from, that you don't want to do, that you think will completely drain you and drain you out of energy. Those are the things that you need to do. This is the same with exposures as well. A lot of people who are very proactive in their lives, very on the go, they don't want to do exposures because they feel like exposures will zap them of energy. It will exhaust them mentally. It will be a pressure on them. And therefore, they won't be able to then live their life at the speed that they're living their life. So there's so many of those things that come into play with that. And it's very, you really have to be mindful of a lot of those things, and also see where those pockets of fear lie for you. So I just thought I would shed some light on this. I've done like quite a few videos recently, and I want to do more because I'm just about to head out of city, going somewhere, and there's some nice like sceneries over there. So I mean, if I get the opportunity, I think I might do some videos over there. But hope you guys have a good week. See you later. Bye. Take care.